Hi, Jeeti. It is so good to be speaking to you today. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You are very welcome, Jeeti. I have been fascinated just by your strength, your courage, your connection with your sisters, and everyone that comes across your work. And I was so keen to pin you down and have a conversation with you about your life lessons and your journey. So thank you for joining us today.
Oh, I'm excited to chat with you.
You're so welcome. So, Jeeti, what I would love to know is what have been your biggest learnings over the last couple of years?
Oh. The biggest learning I'd say is just to trust and to have faith and move forward with that. That no matter what, everything will work out. And it does work out for our highest good. And it's hard to understand that sometimes when you're going through such immense emotions or trauma or pain. But in the end, everything always works out.
So, trust, have faith, and keep driving forward. Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. And I can imagine how they were core qualities that you really needed on your journey of life. Can you share for anyone that hasn't come across you or your story a little bit of the journey that you've been through for many years in your life?
Well, I'm Jeeti Pooni, and my sisters and I, we were sexually abused growing up as children. We broke our silence back in 2006. And moving forward, we've been a part of the criminal justice system for the past 14 years, and there has been a trial and there has been a verdict. And yeah, so it's this journey that we took of just supporting each other and trusting ourselves and moving forward with that, and making it so that like for our future generations, and not just my family but in our community as well, that people do have a voice, and that we do have a voice, and being an example of us three collective sisters standing up for what is our truth, and claiming our power, and make sure that our voices are heard and that we're seen.
And that's amazing. And you've clearly accomplished that. And, it can't have been easy coming from an Indian background myself. And as a psychologist, meeting many people who go through all kinds of ups and downs in their lives. There's a lot of self-silencing that happens in our communities and a lack of support, almost like gaslighting, like, no, that didn't happen, or that relative wasn't rude, etc. And so, how have you continued despite maybe not having support from the closest people around you? And I'm just thinking about all those people out there that feel so alone, that they know something's not right, whether it's in a marriage, whether it's in friendships even, or whether it's closer to home than that, but any situation that their boundaries are being crossed. um, how does it feel not having that support, and what is required within you to continue to drive your authenticity and your truth?
Well, it is difficult. It's a difficult journey, feeling alone, and not having support, and that feeling of not having support. Um, well, what's important to remember is the only person that can support you is you. So you have to dig in deep and find it within you to first and foremost just accept yourself, right? And come from a place where you are able to give yourself some sort of love, and to trust that knowingness that comes from within. And that was very important for me at that time in 2006 when I decided to break my silence. That trust the knowingness that comes from within. Do not worry about the consequences. Oh, this will happen, or my family will break off, from me, or I'll lose my husband, or I'll lose my house, or whatever. If we get into that, then we're all stuck in just fear and more fear and more fear, right? So just trust that knowingness that comes from within and speak what is your authentic truth, right? What's true to you. And if you're aligned with that, then everything else, like I said, will work out. So what's, for your highest good is for the highest good of all. And it's not an easy journey though, right? It's easier said than done. And find a support system. So if you don't have support from your family, find a friend. And if you don't have a friend, then find a counselor or a teacher, or there is support out there available. It's just, in most cases, we don't know how to reach out for it, and we're afraid to reach out. So I think we're taught in our community to keep everything hush hush and not tell our secrets, and that's the good for the family, when in fact it's actually the opposite. It's not the good for the family. It's not the good for the community, and as a collective, as a whole. It hinders us. All this trauma and pain, this horror that's being inflicted in families, on children, on women, on men. It's not good for our community. So find your support, create your support, and you have to find that support within yourself as well. That's just as important as having a friend that you can talk to, or a counselor you can talk to.
Thank you, Jeeti. I think that's really important with how you started around find that little bit of love for yourself first, because we can be our own worst enemies and paralyze ourselves in fear. And I think also fear-based mentality comes from sometimes the community as well. If you don't do this, this is going to happen. If you don't do that, that's going to happen. If you do this, this is what's going to happen. And I think that an important reminder is that actually, as you've said, park that and think about what's at stake if you don't do it. Because if you do speak up, if you do speak your truth, then you are shifting a culture positively. It might be a bit scary, but we know we're born with two fears in life: falling over and loud noises. Every other fear we have is completely self-created. So, I love what you say, Jibby, around find that bit of love, manage your mindset, really manage that little narrative in your head. And if you haven't got a community, create a community. It's super important. And what did you find when you started to create a community? Because I can imagine it must have been so scary to go out there and start to cultivate a community and be open when you had self-silence for so long.
Well, I had to just, I had that, like I said, that knowingness, okay, that I have to do this. There's certain events that led to that point, where I just had to break my silence. So I communicated it, to my husband, that this is what's happened to me. This is my past. My sisters and I, we chose to tell our parents as well. And, and and moving forward, from there, like, because I trusted that knowingness, my sisters joined me. Because I trusted that knowingness inside and didn't fear about the consequences, it didn't matter if my parents supported or not, or what. And they, in fact, they didn't do anything about it initially. Right. So that's when my sisters and I chose to go to the police then. And through that journey, we found a really nice prosecutor that was very supportive through our journey as well. Right. And then there's victim support workers. Some of them are really great. Right. And others still need to work on their own healing. And, moving forward, just connecting with other support groups and stuff. And that support is great. And it was really nice because it kind of lifted a little bit of the burden off of my shoulders, in the sense of I didn't have to do it all by myself. I didn't have to, guide my sisters all by myself. I had a release outlet. I had someone I could talk to, not just me, being this mother hen that's worrying about, her sisters and all of that, as well as educating myself about the court process and all of that. So the support that came from the outside, it was really beneficial, and the long lasting relationships, and it further strengthens that connection you have with yourself, the knowingness that you're on the right path. So no matter if your family ever talks to you again or not, no matter whatever the verdict is of the court case, no matter what happens in your life, you deserve to tell your truth. Your voice, deserves to be heard, and you do matter. So these people, they're a reflection of people that actually care and want your story out there so that, one can heal. So it just formed this a union of support and love and a community outside of my family and my family structure. Because in our families, parents really don't know how to console their children or even want to talk about this topic, right? Husbands will most likely not be able to help you, but the brother doesn't know. So, the aunt and uncle, they want to stay far away from this topic as possible, right? So finding that community outside of what we're traditionally taught is our community was very beneficial.
Yeah, I think that's amazing, and I think what you're describing here, Jeeti, is that magnetism that then is formed once you speak your truth, which can be so scary, but with conviction, because yes, you are important and you absolutely deserve justice, whatever the issues might be. It might be a little bit of a lonely road initially, but people who want to support you and work in that realm will gravitate towards you, and your idea of what a community or the community was might look different, but there is so much healing in that sharing. I often share with my friends that when I was in the UK, there's a charity called the Samaritans. I don't know if you've heard of them, but it's a free phone line that you can call 24/7, 7 days a week. And there's always a counselor, very well trained counselor at the end of the phone, completely free. And they would be on my favorites. And I would call them weekly with the littlest thing, or maybe the biggest thing, or, something that wouldn't leave my mind. And I literally think it saved me from being so low at times, because I had someone who was trained, who could listen, and it wasn't costing me anything, didn't have to pay for it, which helped a lot. So I think you're right, Jeeti, in that go out there. There are so many support groups. We're in 2021 now. We're not living in archaic times. So whether you're in Pakistan, you're in India, Africa, wherever you might be, there are people out there who care and that they will support you. Find that validation within yourself. What for you was like your moment where you were like, I am important. I'm going to do this. I'm going to go out there. Like, what was that little moment in your experience and in your mind?
Well, for me, it was back in 2006, the moment I broke my silence. And the reason being because the story that was out there and all the horrible stuff that was being said and being said to me, that I was a horrible person or my sisters and I were horrible, right? So it's like, okay, the abuse happened to us. I was a little girl. I was 11, when this person, um, sexually abused me, and my sisters were young. So how is it that it's my fault? And once that clicked, then there was no stopping me. And there were, like I said, pretty nasty things said, and that caused a switch in my brain that, oh my gosh, this is all wrong. And it caused me to go just back to the first time that things had happened to me with this individual, and then I saw it differently. All of a sudden, it wasn't that I was to blame for this, because in my mind I was blaming myself too, right? and that I must have done something wrong, and I must have you know initiated in some way or caused him to do this, stuff to me. But it clicked, that, hello, you're not to blame. There's this little Jeeti. So my connection with little Jeeti instantly formed at that moment, and I was able to just be able to say exactly what my truth was without, like I said, thinking about all the fearful consequences. And I moved forward from there. And even sitting in court when the defense lawyer has all these nasty things to say about you and ask you, and all these bogus suggestions, which are actually very traumatizing, um, it's like, that's not the truth. So the more that was thrown at me, that I'm the liar, I'm to blame, I'm to shame, the more that was thrown at me, then the more I was connecting more to that deeper power within, right? Like, okay, go ahead, say it, whatever you want, think whatever you want. That's not the truth. So my truth. So aligning with my authenticity, my truth, and coming from that place. It was never about uh, the sentencing, like he needs to be jailed for 50 years or whatever else. It was never about um, how much jail time, right? It was always about speaking our truth, that my sisters and I actually get to tell our story, whether the judge believes us or not, right? Whether anyone believes us or not. So that whole process was very, very empowering. And I would say those were the two moments, with the defense counsel, all of that. And also just that moment of initially breaking my silence. And in this whole trial process, there was a lot of adjournments that were granted to the defense. So it was adjournment after adjournment, which led to years of just delays for no reason. I think in the end, it's about a 7 year, 7 to 8 years, right? But in total, it's been a 14-year journey. And the delays, kind of the same thing. It's like aligning me more to my core, right? So whenever you have a setback, right, that's what I was saying before. It works at the time, we don't see it, but it works to serve you, right? And having gone through all this and sitting here now, that's one thing I can say. Whatever experience comes our way, it comes to teach us the lessons that we need to learn and to help us grow in the way that we were born to grow, right? So we can claim our birthright.
Absolutely. And I think, Jiddy, what you're talking about there beautifully is intuition. So your intuition was being grated and challenged as these wrong accusations were being thrown at you, and the hearsay that was just so incorrect that your inner voice was like, no, I'm going to speak my truth. And when you do that, the world changes around you. So I cannot imagine how hard it would have been for all of those years to just be going through that process with the defense lawyer, getting really nasty and personal. But you kept on, and I think kudos to you, because what you have done is paved the way for so many who are vulnerable, who are still not speaking up, who are not breaking their silence, who are too scared. You've shown them that you can do it and come out the other side. And it's not, of course, it's not easy, but it's not impossible. And that's the thing. And I think as women, we are so powerful. And I often reflect on my life journey and all the setbacks and all the things that came in your path, as they do for everybody. But I think what it does is it creates a fire in you that's actually unbreakable, that keeps you going. So I think for everyone watching this, if you've lost your fire, you're going to know it. If you've lost that zest for life, you're going to feel it. Think about reigniting it. How can you go back to reignite? And I love what you said, Judy, that you connected with the younger self. And I think that's beautiful work to do. It's very it's hard, and that's why it's called work, because it's so hard. It's, peeling off the layers and layers and layers, which is so difficult. But doing it is very beneficial, because I think your intuition is that little voice. It's your younger self saying, "Help! Something's not right here. Please support me." And it's the one that we often, as Asian women, just are like, "No, no, no. It's not worth it. It's not worth it." But psychologists have shown, and I don't know what your experience of this is, but suffering, emotional suffering, is mapped in our body. It's called the geographies of failure. That's what it's called, where we just map rejection and hurt, etc. Did you have any physical symptoms like backaches or headaches or anything that came about when you were not speaking up, when you were not sharing your story?
Initially, I would have just ignored it, not even thinking that this is because of feelings that I'm suppressing or trauma that I'm suppressing. But at that moment, when I broke my silence, so just right before that, my body went through this process where I felt like I was so nauseous. There was internal turmoil. So my body was reacting to all the horrible things that were being said to me, and it was switching, like I said, for me to honor the little Jeeti, to realize it's not little Jeeti's fault, right? So once that switch flipped, my body just went into I can't even really. I can't even really describe it because it was so intense. It was as if I had all of this emotions. It was a purging, right, of all these emotions. This release, this gucky, that stuff that gets stuck down the drain. Your kitchen drain or something. You pull it out, right? It was that kind of stuff I felt physically releasing, and then there was a lot of tears that came with that. But prior to that, everything that I had been stuffing down, I didn't pay attention to how my body was reacting to all of that. But I can tell you one thing, where I sit today, um, we weren't able to, like with my daughters, we weren't able to conceive right away. I think the effect of whatever trauma that was in my body for all those years, it affects you from head to toe, right? Mentally and physically and all these ways. But I do believe it would have been easier to conceive if all of that hadn't happened in the first place, right? So there's ways that we suppress ourselves internally and not know. And now where I am, I do know when my stuff comes up. I can feel it in my body. I know where, that little, Jeeti, or the inner child, where it sits, and all of that, the emotions that are coming and where they're coming from. So I have a lot more understanding of it now than I did before. But other than that, there's no ailments before speaking up that I can say that I was conscious of.
Yeah, and it's so interesting how your body reacted when you did start going through the motions and not being able to conceive earlier on. I think we need to listen to our bodies and take note. And I think that only happens when we really stop to reflect and think about, okay, why have I got this pain in my back? What message is it trying to give me? Or why does my chest feel so tight, or my stomach has a constant knot in it? What's going on there? Louise Hay, don't know if you know her, amazing woman. She often talked about and wrote about the body, places in the body that represent trauma that we are suppressing. So really be kind to yourself, take note. And to a point around crying, I think crying is such a healing thing to do, because psychologists have also shown that when you cry from a place of pain or trauma, you release cortisol. So in the tear, there's like actual cortisol. Happy tears have a different composition than tears of trauma. So getting it out of your body is super important. So one of my best friends, Amrinda, Amrinda from London has sent some questions that I would love to ask you. So, what advice would you give someone, Jeeti, who wants to get justice via courts but is putting it off to save them from the trauma and save face of family members? What advice would you give?
I think first and foremost, it's important to recognize, like, where are you coming from? Like, are you coming from a place of vengeance? Are you coming from a place of love? Because the energy that you put into your action, that's what's going to get carried through that experience, whether that means, going to court or telling, your parents or whatever else. This is such an individual choice to go to the police or go tell your parents or not. First and foremost, it's important to recognize and own your own story. Yes, this happened to me and I am still whole, right? Self-acceptance, right? When you move from that place, then you won't be in that place of anger, fear, and huge hate even. But it's such it for every person. It's different, and we have to recognize that. My sisters and I took this path, and I'm not going to say that justice is found through the justice system, right? Look where we are 14 years later, right? But it's what's your purpose? What's your purpose for moving forward? Is it for your own healing? Or is it because you want to get back at that person? Or is it because you want to be heard? And be very clear in what your intention is and move forward from that. And then nothing can stop you. Because if your intention is that I want my voice to be heard, I matter, and what's happened to me matters, and I know moving forward, I'm going to heal from this. That's the most important thing, right? Find your healing. And if going through the court system you feel is going to help you find your feeling, by all means, go ahead. Then all the other stuff out there doesn't matter. What will the parents say? What will society say, right? All of that doesn't matter. Just be clear where you're coming from and how moving forward will serve you.
Yeah, I think that's amazing advice, actually, because if you're not clear on your intention or your purpose, then naturally it's going to get in the way of how you articulate yourself, the energy that you bring to that journey. And so by representing yourself fully, you've got to really know, why am I doing this? What do I want to get out of this? And actually managing, like you said earlier, managing those voices, managing that narrative, and then going forward, once you're clear on your intention, I think then everything will move out of the way, and hopefully the truth will get out, if you're authentic to your voice. Do you find, Jeeti, that going through the justice system gave you closure?
Closure does not lie in the justice system. Closure lies within. Closure lies with how much you are willing to accept yourself, accept what has happened to you. Yes, it's your story, and it's painful, it's traumatic. Own it, honor it. Closure lies in honoring your story. Closure lies in taking those little steps to learn what self is, what love is. I had no idea. Like, self-love, huh? What? Self? Because we're taught to do everything else for everyone else, and that's what matters. And as an individual, I don't matter. So I had a lot of learning to do after the court case. And it was a really nice friend that pointed me towards a great teacher from whom I learned a lot of different modalities and stuff. And the first and foremost thing was self-acceptance. And then I'm like, well, what is self? Well, I don't even know what self is. So when I went on that journey, oh my gosh, it's like opening up a beautiful golden gate of this luminous divine light, right? And then seeing that light inside yourself. So there's going to be no closure whether you do a civil suit for money. There's going to be no closure if you just do it because you want to get back at this person. There will be closure. There will be closure if you come from that, like I said before, that place of love and honoring your story and honoring that person who you were that went through all of that horror. And yes, it happened. You are worthy of having a great life, no matter what your story is. You deserve a great life. It's your birthright. So claim it. By claiming that birthright, you will get closure.
Yeah, I think that's really important. I coach a lot of women who intuitively sort of knew that something wasn't right to begin with and then just put up with it and it's gotten worse. Um, and there's a lot of punishing, being critical, being your own judge, and I knew, and I was so silly then, I should have said something. But I think actually just honoring who you were and knowing that it's that behavior is not okay and your younger self did not deserve it. And but honoring your story in the same sense. So um, having compassion for yourself as you heal, as you go through the journey. So what did these self-help tools have you used and continue to use that help you stay so strong and just so wise as you are?
It There's a lot of different modalities out there, and different modalities work for different people. And also, something that works you and serves you at one time, fast forward 5 years later, it might be another modality that serves you better, right? So initially, you just have to start from the trust and having faith, right? And by trust, I mean trusting yourself, trusting that voice that comes from inside, which you mentioned, intuition, and trusting that all will work out for you, and to then move forward, by having faith. Initially, I didn't know very much about any type of healing. I was 37 back in 2006 when I broke my silence, and I immediately saw therapy. I saw a therapist, so I sought therapy right away. I knew something was off, and I wasn't feeling well, that I wasn't in my mental health as feeling as great as I usually do. So I sought a therapist, and through him I learned a lot of different NLP techniques, and then tapping, EFT. So he taught me that. And my sister Kira, she actually was the one who sought him out, and Dr. Alexander Lees. 2016 he passed on, and then after the court case, there's a whole bunch of modalities that I'm educating myself on, including inner child work. Right? Meditation has always been a part of my life, off and on, when I became an adult. But inner child work is something that was very, it's something I embraced. My therapist had introduced me to it a long time ago, but over the past 3 years, it's an everyday thing in my life. And not just that, there's meditation, there's different types of breathing. The list goes on and on and on as to which modality one can reach out for. But constellation work, and learning about trauma itself, so educating oneself about how trauma works, that's been very helpful as well. And there's a whole list that I do for myself, but for someone else that might be another modality that works.
Yeah, I think the key takeaway really is try lots of different things and whatever works for you, and there'll be a different thing for you at a different stage that works well. But I agree around meditation. It's such a powerful resource, and YouTube has so many amazing healing meditations and guided meditations, etc. So if you're feeling if you're listening and you're feeling like you need something to support, you need something to give you that strength and to build you up from inside, make meditation your first point of call, because it will really separate your thoughts and to will help you ease into what is going on. But and it's excellent, Jiti. You really are um, trying all sorts of different things and tapping and inner child work. Again, not easy, but once you do the work, and it's continuous work, isn't it? It doesn't stop. But when you go on that journey, like you say, it's like the golden gate, and there's this just a different type of setup, and you don't want to turn back. Like, I don't want to go back there. I need to keep going towards the light. So that's what you're doing, which is brilliant. So, Jiti, what have you done to raise awareness of abuse and trauma in the Asian community?
Oh, wow. First and foremost, I've broken my silence, right? And pursued the criminal justice system. So there's this very lengthy court case. And that the initial journey was obviously giving voice to the little Jeeti that I was and my sisters, and also protecting my daughters. But it became even a bigger, how can I say it, thing of service, because the precedent that would be set through this court case would benefit other women or other survivors going through the system. So then it became about setting a precedent for, other girls like us. And then from there, I had also wanted to do a film. So once I broke my silence, I knew, okay, I'm going to make a documentary on this. So I made a documentary called Because We Are Girls, which is produced by the National Film Board of Canada, and it's directed by Baljit Sangra. And then my sisters decided to participate as well, and my parents, my brother. So my whole family decided to participate, and it's exactly what I had wanted, in the sense, just to bring the issue forward so that others can have a voice. And it would be a film where others can see the limitations of the culture itself, the expectations that are put on girls, and how abuse is just not talked about, right? So having my parents in there and in the film, and them having a dialogue of exactly how they feel about things, it gives other parents a voice. And it gives parents a message that it's okay to speak up about this stuff, no matter what you believe, right? And fast forward from that as well. So along with the trial, I made the film, and then I also wrote a book. It's called The Silent Stoning. And the book itself goes into details. The grooming process, and just basically the story itself, and that unfolds, and then in the end, the healing that comes from something like this. The film itself doesn't go very much into the grooming process, but it does go into all the other cultural, the shaming and the blaming and the suppressiveness, and the filming industry, like the Bollywood movies and all of that we used to watch, and how that affected us in suppressing our voice as well. So just and growing up in a small town, it's different once you immigrate from another country, and then settling in this country. It's different and difficult for the parents, but also for the children, and then all the bullying that results from that, because you are different. So the film covers a lot of that stuff, and it's all to put the issue out there that we do have these horrible secrets or abuse. It's not just other communities, but it's our community as well, and we don't talk about it. And instead of talking about it, we silence, the person that's been harmed even more so, crushing them even further. So there's a lot. And now that I'm out there on social media everywhere, so people can engage with us, with myself and my sisters, and they know that they're not the only ones that are going through this, because that's one big thing. We think it's just happening to me, but usually there's a long list of other people So it's rare that only a perpetrator would abuse just that one person, right? There's usually a whole long other list, and that feeling that we're giving as a voice, as a collective voice, we're giving our community. How can I say this? This enlightenment, if I can call it that. That it's okay to discuss our problems. It's okay to have these problems that do exist and acknowledge them. And then from there, we can come collectively as a community to change them. Like what doesn't serve us, we can always change. We're the ones who created these beliefs and we're the ones who created these rules. So as a society, we can change them at any time. And if we're so willing to adopt modern music, we're so willing to, try different fusion foods and different clothing, right? But then when it comes to especially girls and females, this submissiveness, this suppression, how in our culture we treat women, we're not addressing that. We're not addressing the abuse that our children go through, right? We're so it's highlighting all of this through all the work that I've done over the 14 years, and will continue to do so. There's so many organizations that have popped up. I've noticed on social media as well that are now. Oh, okay. Thank you, Pooni Sisters. Thank you, Pooni Sisters, for inspiring us, hearing your story. This is what I'm going to do for our community. This is the organization I've created. And it's nice. It's nice to see that because growing up, there was no community in the way we have it now. So I think our children are blessed. The younger generation is blessed that there's platforms out there that they can write into or call into and share their own stories or at least get help.
I can't wait for your book to come out because I think already things have, started moving, shaking. People are being so much more open. There's so many groups on Instagram. I know, South Asian community groups and, I'm Not Your Wife. I don't know if you've seen that one, Not Your Wife, and various others who are really being bold and speaking up. But I don't think that's come I don't think it's come out of nowhere. I think you've enabled that. I think you being bold, coming out, and how amazing that you had your family support. That's so powerful because often we can doubt and we can think, oh, we'll just be disowned and our family won't be there. But when it really comes down to it, actually we don't know what's going to happen. It could go either way. But trusting your voice and those that matter do come around you. So the silent stoning. When can we expect to see this book?
I'm hoping this year. I've got my fingers crossed, and I've been working on it and editing it and all of that stuff. What people can do if someone's interested, they can hop onto jeetipooni.com and just go on my about page and fill out a form, and then you can basically sign up for email. And then once it's ready for pre-order, then that's a good way of knowing that the book is ready and it's coming. And to be in touch with what I'm doing, because there's a lot that I have planned and moving forward, just being in service of amplifying my voice and this voice that needs to be highlighted and deserves to be, and the stories that matter to all of us have to be told and should be told, right? So yeah.
Definitely going to be signing up to your Elist, and I think everyone watching needs to do that too. We are all in this together, and we have to support, we have to drive these messages home, we have to change a culture that's not working. Things, there are things in the culture that are beautiful, but there are intricate nuances that don't serve. And so, what advice would you give to the new generation of parents? So I'm thinking I've got 3 daughters, 3 young girls, and we're busy working, etc. Of course, I feel like we're more of a hands-on generation in a different way, and I'm generalizing here, but from what I've seen, we're maybe sometimes too hands-on. But what advice would you give to parents, in terms of educating and really setting their kids up for that inner resilience and transparency? Because I see a lot is still hidden in our community. It's almost like double lives. So we may be
Mhm.
carrying things as parents that were done to us, like, no, don't sit like that, or don't speak up, don't argue back. Obviously, we're a lot more conscious. But what advice would you give to really encourage that transparency with the next generation?
I think it's important to sit down with our children, and even as parents, educate ourselves about the different attachment needs. So, from the age 0 to 6, there's different developmental needs that have to be met. Otherwise, a child grows up and will always be seeking those attachment needs that we're missing. So, to educate ourselves as to development of children, and also sitting down with our children, having conversations, and letting them know that no matter what, I love you. So no matter what you ever say, think, or do, I will always be here for you. I love you, and trust in me. You can come to me whenever with whatever. There's nothing that you can do so wrong that mommy will walk away from you, right? Um, and then teach them about boundaries. We in our community don't talk about boundaries, and there is no boundaries. So if an uncle walks through the door, we're usually told, "Oh, go hug him. Oh, go give whoever a hug." This person that you have never seen before, right? We're supposed to respect them and hug them, right? So talk about boundaries. What is your space, and who's allowed in that space, and how do you say no? And um, talk about feelings. What's your child feeling? If your child is feeling uncomfortable being around someone, don't force that child to sit on that person's lap, right? Because we do that. Oh, uncle wants, to give you a big hug here, go sit on his lap, right? So these are like things that we have to start looking at and changing, as well as just the communication with your child. Have it so that your child just can come home with that knowingness that mommy has my back, daddy has my back, no matter what I do. And from there, relationships will flourish, right? And from there, if there's any way that you have to step in and further support your child, you'll be able to, right? Because growing up, I never had that support. Going through the court system, I never had that support from my parents. So, I mean, imagine how it would be in reverse if we help our children thrive in that way, to speak their truth. Tell your child to always speak your truth, no matter who likes it or not, right? And not have it so that we're just focused on behavior based. We're so behavior based, behavior parenting. You know about that, right? So what does that cause? Oh, children to be more obedient, more submissive. Punishment is to have your child behave in a certain way. Does that help? Well, so it's more about relating to your child and their needs and their development needs, and also communication.
I think that's brilliant. Something that we do once a month. I sit with my girls on a Saturday or Sunday, and we do a little workshop. And we say, "Respect my boundaries." So my little 4-year-old, some will say, "Respect my boundaries," and it's really important for them to know those words, to practice saying it, to role play, like you said, and also let's get away from this obligation. I've seen little kids come to my house and just sort of be encouraged to hug me, and of course I'm very huggy and affectionate, and I'm happy to hug anyone's child. So I love kids, but I, as a psychologist, and knowing what could happen, um, I never force my kids to hug, and they may be perceived as cold or detached or unemotional, but that's not my business. And I think we as a community, we need to get out of any business that's not ours. Our business is our children and around their safety, and that's the bottom line. Doesn't matter what Suki auntie's going to say or this uncle's going to think, it's irrelevant. It's about, is my child safe, happy, respected, and feeling okay. It's right. It's, we never talk about feelings really in the Indian community. What are feelings? Stop feeling,
No,
you know?
not only feelings, we don't talk about sex
Yeah,
as well.
exactly.
We
Yeah.
don't teach our child what is appropriate touch, what is not appropriate touch,
Mhm.
what is sex. And
Yeah.
it's very uncomfortable for our community to have these conversations and for families to sit down with their children. It's as if sex is such a bad thing,
Mm.
right? But then again, that's how we're all born.
Yeah.
That's how we're conceived, right? So parents, I think, as a community and as parents, we need to kind of take the blinders off of all of that and not make it a taboo subject, and have these talks with our children: what sex is, what's appropriate, what's not. And um and and little kids, I mean, accept the certain behaviors that come with being a child, right? We should accept them rather than shunning children about it. So if they touch their body parts or something, they're immediately shunned. Oh, don't do this, you don't do that, da 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 da. There's educate yourself. There's certain stages that children go through naturally, biologically, and so we need to own that. And as adults, educate ourselves about sex and how it is okay and why it's okay to talk about all of that. So as parents, we have a lot of education that we have, that we need to do on ourselves too. It's not just about the children. And when it comes to the grandparents and the older generations, well, they've been raised the way they've been raised. So our focus should lie, I feel, on us, our children, and our future generations.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're right. Our education as parents should not stop. And I think we need to think about what's not worked from a cultural perspective and think about what we can do to rectify that with the next generation that's up and coming. Jiti, what can we do to support you?
Well, we have a Puni Sisters petition. So if you go to change.org/Puni Sisters, we have a petition that we're urging Crown Council to basically make sure that the case proceeds forward. And if there's any appeals that are necessary, that they follow through with those appeals, and that the case gets put back into the Supreme Court of BC for sentencing. Because where it is right now, the charges were dropped, the case was stayed. There's no criminal record. That's been basically all wiped away now, and he won't have to register on the sex offenders registry list due to that application that he filed, that his rights to a timely trial were breached. So even though he was found guilty, then the whole case was stayed. So fast forward, just this past November, there has been an appeal that has been heard, but we're trying to get as many signatures as we can, because there's a lot more Crown can do, and policymakers that make these laws, that they can do, so that there is change in the system that would help other survivors as well. So every signature matters, and anyone who is interested can go to the petition and sign it for us. That would be very, very appreciated. And also, just all those thoughtful messages, I just want everyone to know that they do make a difference, and we do read them and respond to as many as we can. And just that love, keep it going in your families, in your community, by having these conversations. And bit by bit, things around us will change.
Jiti, it has been amazing speaking to you today. Thank you for your openness, honesty, vulnerability, courage. The list could go on. Thank you. I'm so grateful for your time.
Oh, you're very welcome. And I want to thank you on behalf of my sisters, Geeta, Salakshana, and myself, and giving me this opportunity to speak with you, and having these conversations that are very, very important in our family and our community. So thank you.
Very welcome. Thank you so much, Jithi.